ABC, it's Jeff here. Time for a vinyl update. This is just some of the recent stuff I got in, and I want to go ahead and show some of this, and I'm going to get your opinion on some of this. So I picked this up. This is the Van Halen Live Box Set from a couple years ago. This actually came out prior to me getting back into vinyl, so I missed out when it came out, and then the prices went outrageous. And I just couldn't justify it. So I found somebody that I couldn't believe it. I mean, the only thing wrong with this, and I don't call it really wrong with it, is this guy. It looks like something kind of banged the box right there. So that's really the only real blemish on it. Everything else, they say they played it like one time. Anyway, this was selling. I was seeing this sell for like over $200. It's 4 albums. And I just, I'm not going to pay that, but this was actually, with shipping way less than that. So it is I think this is a French version, which seems to be, one of the common ones out there. But, as you can see, the album itself, it's got the lyrics. It's just, all 4 albums are just black on the back, the lyrics on the front. It's really kind of, there's nothing in here. There's no anything. It's a live album. Why not live pictures? I will say that the package that they put together is sad. This is just, you don't put out a box set with no pictures, nothing in color. Everything's black and white inside, black. It's just very cheap, very cheap. Well, it is what it is. Now, what are your thoughts on this album? When this album first came out, I bought it. Everybody's looking for a David Lee Roth era live album. Obviously, it'd be great to have one from back in the day and their young energy. They put this out, after David Lee Roth comes back, and I know most people that I know were kind of, poo-pooing this album because, while the band may be hot, and they got Wolfie on bass, and you got that whole difference there. But David Lee Roth's performance, was he kind of mouths the words occasionally, doesn't sing half the words, does a lot of chit chat that's not part of the words. It's just not like he really. But then again, back in the day when he was drunk, he didn't do much singing either. But there was a lot more. But I don't know. It just became kind of, most people were like, yeah, David Lee Roth has lost it as far as, the ability to perform. So I was kind of hesitant to buy this from the standpoint of, well, it wasn't a great live album, but then the other hand, I was like, well, David Lee Roth just retired and Eddie's gone, so I wanted to own it. It is a piece of that time frame. So what are your thoughts on this album? If you have it, did you like it? Were you excited to get it? Were you impressed with it? Were you, not so happy with it? What are your thoughts? Let me know. Now, the rest of these items are just basically some records I picked up in various places. This first one, though, there'd been some talk online. Rob over at Black Star Vinyl, some other people on Instagram had been talking about picking up the obscure 80s bands whenever you can get them because they're becoming harder to find and more expensive, and et cetera, et cetera. So I keep an eye out for them whenever I can. And I have no clue how this one even came up on my radar. I don't know how it popped up. I can't remember, and it was just a couple weeks ago. But for some reason, somebody mentioned it somewhere, or something was online, and I pulled it up and looked it up. Chaos, Agent Killers. I didn't know anything about them. I went ahead and popped them up on YouTube and listened to a quick track, and I thought, okay, this is exactly what I would expect it to be. Really, if I were to find this in the wild, sight unseen, without really knowing it, and I saw a band like that, I would buy it. Come on. Anytime somebody's biting a guitar, you got to own that. So, San Diego is where it was recorded. I assume they're a San Diego band. They may be somewhere else in California. But they are a California band, so they got that whole sound, of all the bands in the LA scene that we're familiar with the hair and all of that. 1982, so we're talking a bit earlier, in right at the start of that whole era of music that came out. And so my impression, I've listened to it a couple times, and my impression is it is very similar to a Motley Crue sound of the first album. The vocalist is going for that style. I don't know who came first, who listened to who, if anybody, or if it's just the style that they were shooting for. Kind of got that nasally vocal style that's a little higher range. But in this case, it's not quite as strong and defined as Vince Neil does for Motley Crue. Vince Neil pulls it off. It's powerful sounding with his little with that sound. This sounds kind of like a poor man's Vince Neil. It's almost forced a little, not quite as strong. But overall, it was a great album. I mean, musically, they sound, really good hard rock metal of that time. And so, yeah, I'm not, was not let down at all. And so, yeah, it was just another band that I had no clue about. It was one of those bands back in the day. It's great to have these bands because, a lot of those bands back then didn't get signed, or maybe they had a little album like this. This is the only thing that's listed on Discogs as being by the band. So, one and done, I'm assuming. I don't recognize any of the names on here. I don't know if any of these guys went on to be in any other bands. I didn't stop to look them up. John Perry, James Senior, T.T. Townsend, and Michael Hart with 2 T's. So I don't know. Maybe they went on to be in other big bands, and I just need to stop and look them up. But anyway, it was a good album. It wasn't that expensive. So some of these are just, now the rest of these are just fillers. We got Marauder by Blackfoot. I'm trying to fill in some of the Blackfoot collection. Great album. I like Blackfoot. I like all of their stuff, and so eventually we'd like to get all their stuff. And these are just, these were just a couple dollars picked up. Triumph Allied Forces. Yes, I have been getting some Triumph albums, but believe it or not, I didn't have Allied Forces, one of the main key albums with all the hits. So anyway, yeah, I went ahead and got that. Great album, great condition. It's got all the songs like Allied Forces and stuff on it. So this one I was glad to find for a really good price. This is Matthew Ward. This would be contemporary Christian pop, whatever. Matthew Ward was one of the singers in the second chapter of Acts with the Sisters. They did a lot of real contemporary CCM type music. When he went solo, it became a little more edged. Had some guitar, had some pop edge, had some a little bit of rock edge to it. What is it? David Huff. Dan Huff plays guitars. Dan Huff, of course, you may be familiar with him. Went on to play with Giant, things along that line. This is I forget the year of this. This would have been back in the late 80s, early 90s, 1986, mid 80s. Yeah, great album. So there's a couple albums of his. I've got a couple earlier albums. There's a couple other albums I'd love to see. Some of them are not on vinyl. But anyway, I love it. I love his voice. And this is really, really good. Just a good, solid rock album. Obviously, from a Christian perspective there. I think this is probably the last Sweet Comfort Band vinyl that I needed. And I don't know why I didn't get it yet. But anyway, it's probably one of my favorite albums. It's the last Sweet Comfort album. Sweet Comfort Band broke up after this. Brian Duncan went solo. The guitar player went on to form Allies and, went on to put out a lot of other big songs and stuff. Brian Duncan went on to do a lot of solo stuff. I love his stuff. Love this band, and this is just, like I say, one of the last ones I needed on vinyl to complete that collection. So, yeah, just a few miscellaneous things, nothing major. Anyway, give me your input on what you think about the Van Halen Live album, because I'm just curious. Would you have bought it? It wasn't a bad price. I went ahead and grabbed it. I wanted to get it, the whole nostalgia thing with them being gone now. Anyway, I'll be back. Rock on and rock hard.